And so it was obvious to me that one should combine technology and, at that point, just meditation. But since then, it's been applying technology to the entire psychological inner landscape.
I'm here with the inspiring and always heartfelt Nichol Bradford. Thank you so much, Nichol, for being here. So crazy times we find ourselves in.
Yeah. But, crazy times are also a real opportunity for change.
It's true. I had a meeting with coaches from all over the world this morning, and that's where we ended up. And our conversation was the opportunities as well. So what are you seeing right now? What kinds of opportunities? Yeah. So how is that translating into your world?
Well, I think that I think this time is really showing us and giving people an opportunity to think about what's really truly important to them, about reconnecting with the people in their lives, with the communities that they're in. I actually, someone sent me a really interesting text, which basically, I just want to read it to you. It's so great. It basically says, in the last week, air pollution has cleared up, the homeless have been housed, evictions have been banned, the stock market is no longer an indicator of public wellness, water shutoffs have been suspended, political prisoners have been freed and jails are being emptied, the debt system has been halted, UBI has been proposed by conservatives, people care about elders, the vulnerable, and frontline workers, mutual aid networks are in full swing, people are taking responsibility to keep their communities safe and healthy, and we're all slowing down, paying attention to our bodies, and finding intentional ways to connect with our loved ones. It's like if you take away the fear about it, and the danger about it, that's actually what's happening. It's like the Venice canals have cleared up and the dolphins are back, and that just took 30 days. And certainly humanity can't come to a full stop, but I think some of the problems that people thought were insurmountable, whether it was the environment or feeling like people truly didn't care about one another, we're actually really seeing that that is not the case. And so I'm hoping that this period of time really becomes an inspiration for everyone to realize that the challenges that are facing us are indeed and in fact solvable, and it might not actually take that much or as much as we thought it would to be able to do that. Not something I would have asked for, but here we are, and so since we're here, what do we do with it?
That's so inspiring. I've been thinking along some similar lines and feeling not sure, like feeling really mixed feelings about looking at the huge opportunity when I also see a lot of very real up close suffering. But it's almost as if the earth is treating humans as a virus. It's like, humans, shut it down. Okay, now I can breathe. All the pollution is clearing. And if you see that, then the question becomes what to do with it. And you just gave me a really positive vision for what to do with that awareness, which is it's possible. It opens up the possibility.
Yeah, it's possible. And I think, one of the things you're really going to see on the other side of this is that, people are really going to be questioning a lot of the decisions that they've made in the past. One example, and again, this is not something I'm cheering for, but, it's like in China, what they saw from the other side of their quarantine is a record number of pregnancies and a record number of divorces. So, it's like people are, getting squished together and, learning what they don't know how to do. And so for us with transformative tech, one of our key pillars is leveraging tech to teach people self-awareness, emotional self-regulation, stress, how to manage stress, anxiety, depression, how to, learn the skills of happiness, because happiness is actually a skill. Many people don't realize that. Also, all of the human interaction skills is our big pillar for the future of work. People are working from home. They're realizing that they have to actually put more effort in to be connected. And then realizing, oh, well, how do I actually do that when I can't just rely on, being able to like joke around in the kitchen at work? And then, using this time well. It's like there's a funny hashtag out there that's sort of like, quarantine goals. Like, what are the books that you're reading? So far I've lost almost 10 pounds. I'm pretty excited about it. Since all of this started. So what books are you reading? And, some of the things that we're doing from an organizational standpoint is really strengthening our organization, things that we never really had the time to do before because we're a nonprofit and, and rely on events and sponsors to, run our global programming. And so there's just been things we just needed to do, but really didn't have the time to do it. And so we're all sort of like, doing the things that need to be done, really need to be done. And so again, it's nothing I would have called for because, there is suffering. But since we're here, and we can't sort of like magic our way out of it or out of, where we are right now, it's like, how do we use it to make sure that the time is well spent?
Yeah. So, what are some of the things you're seeing around you that are inspiring you? What are some of those moments of people stepping up?
I mean, one of the big things is that my an elder that I take care of, um, we it's like all the grocery delivery services are actually 2 to 3 days behind, as are the restaurant deliveries, many of them, and so it happened very very quickly, and so you know this person, as soon as the people in her building knew that she didn't have food, they all got busy making sure that that wasn't the case. Um, and, that's just sort of like a really touching thing. It's like all over the place. People are looking in on the elderly, taking care of them, making sure that they have food, um, and being very cautious about their health. And I think that's a wonderful thing. It's very inspiring.
I had one of those moments this morning. Um, I gathered together the game thinking coaches that we've trained. They're from all over the world. And a coach from Brazil said he lives in a huge apartment building right outside of Sao Paulo. And he saw a sign on the elevator, hello, I'm young and strong. If you're 65 plus, do not hesitate. Call this number. I will get you your groceries. And we're up, and just those, right there. And just to like feel that. And yeah,
Yeah,
and we talked about, it was really interesting. We talked about Maslow's pyramid. You're familiar with that, right?
yeah,
Yeah. And how so many people are being driven down into survival mode that they start to have that us versus them competing over scarce resources like toilet paper and feeling. And that makes you really, and then there's this whole dynamic where people are unknowing carriers without symptoms, could be any of us. There's a lot of not testing. So you recoil from people because you don't know, you don't want to infect them. And it's really distressing. And so when you can do something that cuts through that pull back, limited resources, we're competing over feeling, and lifts you up the pyramid toward connectedness and love. And, we're in this together. Every moment towards that is a beautiful moment.
yeah, yeah. The how many game thinking coaches are there? I love that people are, realizing how valuable, really, interactive engagement is.
Yes. So we have a little over a dozen certified coaches, and we're just welcoming a new group in April. And our program runs completely online and has
Hmm.
been since the beginning. So I'm excited that people have, like, again, you say, oh my God, this is happening. At the same time, I am completely set up to skill up and support and open up new opportunities for people completely online, no matter where they are in any time zone. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, my heart explodes knowing that I can provide that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we had most of them there. We even had someone from Italy. Laura from Italy showed up at the meeting. I'm like, Laura, you're alive. And she was telling us what it's like on the ground in Italy. But
Wow.
yeah, we actually started it last year. We've had two groups of approximately six, and they're from all over the world. Coaches, one is a VP of research at a game company, and it's it came from market demand. People came to me and said, I want to learn this. I need to be really trained and certified. I need something better than the tools I have now. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what we're doing, is helping them get better outcomes for their clients.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I
So
love it. I love it.
yeah, so I'm happy to tell you more about that later. But speaking of games, so a lot of my coaches, some of them are game designers. I actually have someone coming in our next group that's a longtime game designer. But a lot of them are people that want to include games in what they do. They do trainings and workshops with games. They've come from gamification, they're kind of leveling up.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're really eager to learn about games and learn how games can truly impact health and business and wellness. And I know you have a really interesting perspective about games and wellness and what actually makes an impact between intentions and skill.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd
Yeah.
love for you to share that.
So I was in video games directly for 14 years, and I worked on AAA games and very successful games. And the last thing I did was oversee operations for Blizzard Entertainment for China and go to market, which means that I ran World of Warcraft China, StarCraft China, the whole back end, network operations, customer service, QA, localization, IT, like the whole technical uh, understructure, all the platforms, all of those things rolled up into my organization. And I also did go to market because I had a background before that in marketing and strategy and global brand. And so I did that. I loved games. And then I went on a meditation retreat and I had an awakening. So I had a dramatic shift in how my psychology functions, which specifically meant a dramatic decline in rumination, which is inner chatter. And that results in a surge of happiness and a surge of fearlessness. And, I noticed, when I was talking to other people about it, that, what happened for me in 10 days did not happen to, everyone that was at the retreat. So that, of course, raised the question, why? I'm profoundly curious. And so, why were the effects inconsistent when we all were having the same experience? And I also really just wanted lots of other people to have that kind of experience. And so it was obvious to me that one should combine technology and, at that point, just meditation. But since then, it's been applying technology to the entire psychological inner landscape. With that, I came back to the US and I started the Transformative Technology lab with my co-founder Jeff B. Martin, and from that we built the conference, and then we built an online academy, which is very much like the YC Startup School. So it's free, online, no fee, no equity, and people can really learn about this category, what's possible, and connect with other entrepreneurs and innovators. So our mission is to support entrepreneurs and innovators who are leveraging tech for mental and emotional well-being, 21st century flourishing, and human potential and performance. And so it's that entire range of the inner landscape of human psychology being supported, measured, influenced, and stimulated by technology. And so what Amy was referring to is one of the things, like often people confuse an awakening with an epiphany. And they'll think that, oh, you found something better to do with your time. And it's like, well, actually, no, I love games. And I wasn't fleeing games or running from games or anything like that. I think games are the next evolution in human storytelling. And I think that the games that are coming or the games that should exist, I think that, you know, I think that we haven't even begun to see what's possible because fundamentally, games are about, and especially I worked on very big games. And so games are fundamentally about narrative. It's a story, um, community, play, and exploration. And what I've seen, in this intersection with transformation, is that people change only when they change the stories that they have about themselves. That's when you actually have real transformation. And so I believe there's a big role for technology in getting people to the place where they can change the stories about themselves. But that's really what it is. And so when I think of games, and I think of the size of the need of how many people we need to, move into a state of flourishing for some, other things that we can talk about, I actually think games are a tremendous medium for it, but not the way people typically think about games that are, good for you. I think most of the good for you games are bad for you experiences. And so it's really, how do you take the AAA quality games? And by that I mean, the games that have, the very highly talented, experienced teams. There's something about a team that's had people who've been around both success and failure, like because it's like that whole process. It's not just a science, it's also an art that's supported by science. And so, my question to the games community is really like, how can we put mirrors inside the games that we sell anyway, and use that to allow people to understand themselves better? Like, one of my favorite startups right now is a company that is basically working on a new strengths finder, that, like the old strengths finder, like what would you be good at? It shouldn't be a game that you sort of go off in a corner and work on, um, where we're trying to like get people to play games that they wouldn't naturally play. It really should be that young people who are playing Fortnite and Minecraft and the most popular games in the world should be getting a report at the end of it that says, you'd really be good at artificial intelligence, emotional engine engineering, like doing the thing they're doing anyway. Like, that's what should happen. And so, like, how do we put mirrors in games? And Amy and I
I
earlier
love
were
that.
talking about
That's
Hellblade.
Hellblade. Yeah, tell us about Hellblade.
Well, I mean, I'm incredibly excited about Hellblade. Their character is she's a druid, um, and she's got schizophrenia. And you can't necessarily tell it, but she hears voices, she sees visions, she has hallucinations, and they made it medically accurate. So you're playing her. So you're inside the experience of someone who, you could say it's a game world, like there's demons and a bunch of other stuff, but, it's like, is it in her head or not? And so it's exactly, and they made it medically accurate, from the types of things she would experience, but it's narratively, in this, ancient Northern European context. And it won Game of the Year. It's a beautiful game. They had the most advanced facial mapping, emotion recognition, like emotion mapping, that had ever been done in a game at that point. It was a beautiful game. The way that they started out is they just thought it was a cool story, and they thought, oh, maybe she'd have this. And then as they started to learn more about it, they became committed to making it medically accurate. And as they've learned more about, um, as they got immersed in, just how many people are challenged with resilience and not, challenged by not having resilience and coping skills, they have risen to the challenge of, exploring how might we use this game, this trilogy that we're building, to actually teach people the skills in the game context. So it's not a resilience game. It is a game that also teaches resilience.
So I'm really curious how you got the spark, the idea for transformative technology.
I mean, my co-founder had been thinking about technology for enlightenment for a while. And so it's sort of like true transformation. For me, it really was, um, I don't have a bias against technology, and I have zero bias against games. Um, you know, yeah, it's like, it's people are always like, games are addictive, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, they're like people spend 3 or 4 hours a day playing games. It's like, well, people spend 3 or 4 hours a day watching TV, Netflix, and listening to the radio, but we don't call those addictive. Um, so anyway, it's just sort of, it's like, I don't have an issue with technology. I think that the problem with technology is not that it's bad. I think it's that it's not good enough, and that we should make it good enough, which means it should really suit our needs. It should be time well spent. It should, not interfere with our own agency. We should have choices. And so for me, when I think about, um, the task at hand, which is how do we get 2 billion people into a state of flourishing, which is what I think is required for humanity to continue. The only way you have that kind of scale, the only thing that is scalable, accessible, and affordable simultaneously is exponential tech.
What is exponential technology?
Everyone's getting really acquainted with the concept of exponential with coronavirus. And so it's that, it's not a linear progression. It's sort of like it looks linear at the beginning and then it spikes. And for technology, it's price and performance. With the coronavirus, it's the increase in cases, and what that means. And so exponential technology or technologies that also follow that curve. So that would include a good example, of course, is AI, but another example before that is your cell phone, like the phone in your hand. These, when they first came out, were the size of bricks, and they were incredibly expensive. They were $15,000 when they first came out, and they had very little, processing power, and they weren't computers yet; they were just phones. Um, and so now, this is like the processing power in this thing is, is more than you know um, ever before. And so that's a perfect example of an exponential technology. What I think actually is the fundamental issue facing humanity is that all of our crises are on exponential curves. So coronavirus, climate, and then our technology is on an exponential curve. So basically the power of the sensors and the AI and like everything that's happening. But human growth and development is linear. We still do it like this. And that human growth and development is basically how we learn how to be, feel, and become. And so that's a very linear process. And the danger to humanity is actually the gap between, how do we become healthy, functioning adults in society, and our power and our problems. That gap is the dangerous part. And so it seemed obvious to me that that the way to get human growth and development on the exponential curve is to apply exponential technology to it.
So, what's an example of that in your world
Mm.
that gives you hope and inspiration?
So we have 3 pillars. The first one is mental and emotional well-being. In that is where we look at stress, anxiety, depression, sleep, and happiness. The second one is 21st century flourishing. That's where we look at self-awareness, emotional self-regulation, human interaction skills. The last one is human potential and performance. That's where we look at um, cognition, cognitive enhancement, emotional capacity enhancement, purpose and meaning. And all of these, also tie together around health, um, it's like the role of psychological health in health. It actually plays a pretty big role. So specific examples of technologies would be brain-computer interfaces. So if people have heard about neural lace or other ways that people are talking about enhancing cognition, brain-computer interfaces or brain stimulation. You can use it for task acquisition, or people are using it for depression. And then there's meditation apps. One of my favorite examples is a product called Feel, which is a bracelet that integrates heart rate variability, galvanic skin response, and skin temp. And it's applied in a 10-week cognitive behavioral therapy program led by a therapist. And so it's not just, here's a device, get your mental health on. It actually is a therapist who is using the device to help people observe their own progress as they are, developing skills. And so their trials and there's studies that they've been coming out of the combination of CBT plus a device is fundamentally better than a therapist alone or a device alone. And so that's a really inspiring example. So it really is everything that you might think of. There's some early research that's showing there's a good example would be like you can identify schizophrenia almost 100% of the time from stool, which means there's some evidence that's showing up in the gut biome. And so there's people now who are working on looking for the markers of depression in the gut biome. And so what that means is that, and right now it's still causation, it's still correlation, it's not a causation. But what that does mean is that there's a future where, you would be able to treat your gut biome in order to treat depression. And the way that these things work is that, from a logical extension standpoint, if you can figure out what's causing, a negative thing like that, then you can certainly figure out what is going to cause, like what might, what conditions for your gut biome might create your best day ever, to optimize. And so, the reason why we have those pillars is because we realize that the technology is the same. The difference is the entrepreneur and what their focus is, and what their passion is. And also, the other thing that is the same is that the brain, the mind, and the body is included across, all three of these things.
Yeah, when you say the difference is the entrepreneur, that really reminds me of your meditation breakthrough experience, because you were there, as were other people. It was the same structure, but the difference was what you brought to it, which is why you had the breakthrough.
What we've seen with meditation is that different things also really work for different people. And there's thousands of meditation techniques, literally thousands of them. Though there's 6 major families of meditation. So, one of the things that we believe is the reason why there's so much inconsistency coming out of retreats in terms of progression is, it's just people are using the wrong tool for them. So what is actually the right tool for you is really significant. So proper fit is really important.
That's really interesting. Yeah, personalization, human variability. And we see that all the time in all kinds of habit building. Your friends like, I've got the solution, it's this thing, and it often doesn't work for you. Things, there's
Exactly.
different kinds of people. So it's tricky. So you've had this amazing experience moving through gaming, doing a very complex job on a very complex game. And now you are growing this movement, and it's more relevant than ever. What have you learned about innovation and entrepreneurship at this moment where you are, that like you wish you had known 10 years ago?
What have I learned about? I guess what I've learned is that so humans are incredibly creative, and with that creativity, as soon as we really have a problem, once we start to apply our genius to it, We come up with solutions. So when I think of problems that people are having, I don't think, I think we just haven't attempted it yet. And so that's what I think about, creativity and innovation in spaces. Like one of the things that's going to happen, with what's going on right now is because of the legacy medium of interacting in person. Um, the amount of innovation that's about to happen in virtual distance um, communication and worlds is pretty extraordinary because all of the people who are in them right now, there are people who are bumping up against the walls of the current platforms, and they're going to be saying, "This isn't good enough. Why can't I do this? I want to do this. Like, why doesn't it let me do this?" And some of those people will have the skills to actually do something about it. And so, 6 months from now, you're going to see so many new platforms for virtual interaction, whether it's in game, on game, online, on phone. Like it's just like there's going to be an explosion, of comers, going after Zoom and the things that are wrong with it. Though it's a great product. Today, you have, you know, tens of millions of people who were not using it, who are using it now, and are going to be like, "Why can't I do this? I want to do this." Um, and that's going to happen for conference apps and platforms and everything. And a little while ago, it's funny, a couple of months ago, I was talking to an entrepreneur who has a really great product that allowed people to watch sports events together. um, and they were hearing, when they first went out raising, they were hearing from from VCs like, why do I need this? Well, it's like it's really clear to everybody why they need it right now, right? So innovation follows need, you know, like we need something, and creative humans um, ask questions and they get frustrated. And when they get frustrated and they don't like something, then if they've got the skills, then they build it. And so I have a lot of faith actually in people. Um, and so that's probably what I've learned the most about innovation is the faith in, human dissatisfaction and desire to fix it kind of thing.
That makes my heart sing. Oh, that's so inspiring. Roy asks, have you seen games applied to psych challenges like depression?
A really great example out there is Happify. And Happify is actually built by X game people. I think it's really interesting. Happify, Trip, Calm, they're all ex video game people. With Happify, they have little mini games in there that are ways to teach people positive psychology tools. And they had a really robust consumer business, but they also now have a incredibly robust enterprise business. So that's a good example of one that you should check out.
They walk that line between science-based and good games.
Another great one is True Love, and their game is teaching empathy. And the woman who developed it was the head of NPCAI for Assassin's Creed 1, 2, and 3. So, like, serious game cred. And she had a belief that the conventional wisdom that that gaming mechanics had to be dopamine loops was wrong for half the population. And so she whipped together something that, explored her thesis and put it up put it up on Apple. And, and a million downloads later, which happened very quickly. It's sort of, clear that, there's other ways to build games. It's an incredibly simple game. Like it's so simple, but people love it. And it's really about self-compassion and empathy. And it's the kind of thing that someone who's made games would make, who's made really successful games would make.
So I know that you have knowledge of a world, the transformative technology world. We just scratched the surface today. So can you tell us about your upcoming educational opportunities?
Yeah, so we're going to have an online summit next month that really is about well-being in the modern world and well-being in critical times. So we'll have people from our community. So we'll have researchers and entrepreneurs and innovators who will be able to talk through examples of how they've actually used technology for scalable, accessible, affordable means for well-being, in life, at home, at work, um, and it's pretty exciting. It's going to be really awesome.
So where can people go to find out more about that?
Well, right now, on our website, transformativetech.org, and we haven't put that stuff up yet, but as soon as we have it together, I'll send it to you and maybe you can share it with people.
You can count on it. So we're going to bring this to a close, and we will
Great.
share all the links that Nichol talked about in the comments. Thank you so much for coming here and joining us. Thank you, Nichol, for sharing this and being a beacon of light
Oh, it's my
and
pleasure.
hope.
Thank you so much for having me.
Want more? Join me in the Game Thinking Hub, our free group for product leaders who want to innovate smarter. Go to gamethinking.io/hub and sign up today. I'll see you there.